I don't disagree with what Israel's doing. That's the
the
only thing
the
people understand.
civilians
This is
not
what happened in
armed.
Nagasaki and Hiroshima.
Oh, dear God. If you insist on this plan, if you think that ends Hamas, I believe we in the United States have a banner you can use.
Hey everyone, it's David, producer for The Benjamin Dixon Show and Like It or Not. So if you haven't heard, yesterday President Biden said that he's hopeful that a temporary ceasefire between Hamas and Israel will be finalized and start by next Monday, I believe, in time for Ramadan. But amidst this, we have voices that really exemplify the sides in the United States and where our values stand. So if you missed it, over the weekend, Kid Rock was on Joe Rogan's podcast, and they got into Israel and Palestine. The most significant portion of the conversation was about 5 minutes long. And we're going to go through it and just like interject because there's a lot said and a lot that's problematic. As you're watching this, though, just remember, essentially Donald Trump is a celebrity, a fraud, but a celebrity. And it makes a lot of sense when you hear what Kid Rock is saying, why we got what we got out of Donald Trump, why he brought the policies and the attitude that he did. When you elect somebody that doesn't understand, doesn't know how to govern, and doesn't have an understanding of issues, and doesn't surround themselves with people that can handle the issues, well, we kind of get what Kid Rock is calling for. And we had that for the 4 years Trump was in office. With that in mind, though, let's get started and take a look.
If you lived in Gaza, you would be convinced that it's the end of the world, right? Because it is the end of the world in one place. In that spot, it's the end of the world. But where you are, it's not. And you got to look at it that way. And when I look at it that way, I'm like,
the only
ooh.
wars we won were ones we were the most brutal motherfuckers on the planet, which I don't disagree with what Israel's doing. It's like they should just go in there and be like, you know what? We want our hostages back. If we don't have them back, clock starts now, and 24 hours, we're going to start bombing motherfuckers, killing civilians, 30, 40,000 a time. So you civilians better pack up and get these motherfuckers and you go against Hamas. You go against them. We're not playing games with you. But that's the only thing people understand.
You know, it's really something when Joe Rogan is the voice of reason, when Joe Rogan is trying to steer the conversation so that it doesn't go off the rails and just completely genocidal and maniacal. But the first thing that Kid Rock said is how we've won the wars that we've won. When was the last time the United States won a war? Because we didn't win the war in Afghanistan. We didn't win the war in Iraq. We didn't win the Korean War. We didn't win Vietnam. World War II was the last war that we can frame as the U.S. being on the winning side of. If we're factually accurate, which oftentimes this is brushed over and not acknowledged, but really the Soviets, the Russians, won the war for the Allies. They took the most loss, and they were largely responsible for physically winning with their troops. That's not to say the U.S. didn't take losses, and we dropped bombs, which we're going to get to in a second. But World War II is really the best you can do to point to a war that the United States won. So all of the wars in modern history following World War II, where did our brute force that Kid Rock is endorsing and pushing, where exactly did that result in victory? And while Rogan is the voice of reason in this conversation, he doesn't actually point that out. But worse than that, he's actually calling to intentionally wipe out civilians. Israel is killing civilians without any regard. Their AI systems actually tell them who's going to be taken out, and they're still going forward, just on the chance that they're going to be able to take out a member of Hamas. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. And furthermore, bombing houses where there haven't been any connections to Hamas, taking out neighborhoods. So there's plenty of evidence that Israel is not having any regard for civilians and might be intentional in many of the instances. Kid Rock saying we're going to start killing 30,000, 40,000 in one shot, that really just shows that he's basing everything off of what he's seen in Hollywood action flicks, in movies. And it's the same tone that Donald Trump has taken on other issues of foreign policy. But not only that, Kid Rock also put the responsibility on the Palestinians and said, start going after Hamas. Someone needs to point out to Kid Rock that prior to October 7th, the majority of Palestinians did not support Hamas. I mean, still a majority don't, but it's upticked dramatically and for obvious reasons. Around May of 2023, something like only 26% of Palestinians supported Hamas. And mind you, since half the population are children, it's really half of 26% that would be supportive of Hamas because they're questioning adults, obviously. Since then, it's shot up both in the West Bank and in Gaza, close, I think, in the 30s and 40 percentiles, and for understandable reasons. When you disrupt life and are killing civilians, the civilian population is going to start to sympathize with people purportedly fighting for their side, even if it's misguided. And this is why we say you can't take out Hamas, especially not with this strategy. When you're going in killing like this, you're creating a new generation for Hamas. And if Hamas does get weakened to the point where they can't function, there will be other groups waiting. There are other groups waiting. In fact, the hostages aren't being held all by Hamas. There are other groups that are also holding some of the hostages. But I'll let Jon Stewart, who spoke on this last night, cover it a little bit more succinctly.
5 months of a brutal bombing campaign brought on by a horrific massacre and hostage-taking, and we seem no closer to ending anything. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu finally laid out his plan for peace.
Benjamin Netanyahu is calling for complete demilitarization of Gaza, as well as Israel taking over security and controlling entry and exit points to Gaza.
So your peace plan is a siege, a military siege. You really think a military solution ends this cycle?
Victory is within reach, and you can't have victory until you eliminate Hamas.
But, okay. But your plan to eliminate Hamas by destroying all of Gaza, doesn't that just make more Hamases? Is that the plural of Hamas? Hamasai? I mean, it's an idea. Palestinian liberation is an idea. Unless you have a bomb that kills ideas. Do you have a bomb that kills ideas? I mean, how long would it even take to bomb this shit out of an idea?
The intense phase of the fighting is weeks away from completion. Not months, weeks away from completion.
Oh, dear God. If you insist on this plan, if you think that ends Hamas, I believe we in the United States have a banner you can use.
And he's right. It only extends the situation and continues additional cycles. All right, let's get back to Kid Rock and Joe Rogan.
This is what happened in Nagasaki and Hiroshima. Boom! Just wiped out. They're like, oh, yes, we don't have Supreme Leader anymore. We did not know you had such big bombs.
Yeah, but everybody has big bombs now. The problem is you use a big bomb. You set a precedent that they can use a big bomb.
They don't have one.
Well, they don't, but they're allies too.
Then we
That's
bomb
the real
out of them. Someone's going to learn.
Yeah, but
you gotta get your ass beat hard enough.
You can't just nuclear bomb people.
I didn't say nuke 'em.
Nuclear bomb you back.
No, I didn't say nuke.
Okay, you said
'em.
Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I thought you meant it like that.
No, I was saying that just the brute force of strength used in those.
Yeah, but
conflicts.
even a conventional bombing campaign, if you want to do that somewhere, they can do that to your place. And this is what we have
around and find out.
Yeah, until someone launches nukes, and then we have our civilization is over.
So Kid Rock's just like, see what we did in Nagasaki and Hiroshima? We'll do that to you if you don't get your act together. The brute force, he said he's not talking about nukes. He's just talking about the brute force. The nukes were the brute force. The atomic bomb was the brute force. But Kid Rock's not talking about nuclear bombs. And Rogan points out, we might not use the nukes, but someone else is going to use the nukes. Well, and then Kid Rock says, bomb them. Is he not seeing how this goes down? This isn't an action movie where you just shoot a whole bunch of rockets and they put their hands up. If someone attacks with a nuke, the other side might have detection systems and also nuke, but it ends civilization, which is what Rogan says there. I mean, seriously, we need to be thankful and appreciate that Kid Rock has never run for office. But Donald Trump is not really far off from Kid Rock. They're pretty much on the same page. So Kid Rock's basically saying the United States should just bomb the hell out of anyone and everybody and somehow thinks that that's a winning strategy.
The world as you know it ceases to exist. There is no more electricity. Whatever tools you have or things you find, and a small percentage of us are going to make it to breed and then make new kids.
I like how you said
go
us.
out into the world.
I like
There's very few people that are going to live, man.
Well, it's like me and you could probably
maybe.
figure it out.
Yeah. I have chickens too. I have elk in the freezer too. But that
can
freezer's
gut-
not going to stay on.
You can gut an elk.
I can gut an elk.
Yeah.
But that freezer's not going to stay on. So I'm going to lose most of my meat. Unless I turn it into jerky. You're going to have to do something to figure out how to get by, because the world is going to be different. You know, you're not going to have any electricity forever. For the rest of your life, there'll be no electricity.
I like how you're saying us. That's what Kid Rock got from what Joe Rogan was saying, that Joe Rogan was speculating that they would be the ones to survive. And again, Joe Rogan being the voice of reason, saying a lot of people are going to die. Not many people are going to survive. Like, this is not a joke. They went on to joke about meat, but it's really something when Joe Rogan is trying to pull you back.
Just throwing paint at the wall, but what if we empower the people of Palestine, who could be good people? I don't know.
Just
last I checked, most of these motherfuckers hate us. But and I'm not saying all the people do. There's probably a lot that don't. Just like in Iran, the population is, because of the Iraq war, there's so many under 50 there. That's like the majority.
The thing is, these guys don't have access to other information outside of where they live. And then on top of that,
Elon, send the Starlink. We'll send them some guns. Let's go.
The problem is most of them would be so opposed to Israel that they would want to use those guns to go attack Israel.
Well, then now we have due reason to them all up.
Yeah, but if you think about, you're a kid and you don't know why there's a conflict between Palestine and Israel, and living in Palestine, and then they start bombing, and then they kill your mom. Yeah, but but you didn't do anything.
It sounds like Bud Light.
And then you get guns. You're going to go want to attack people. You're going to want to avenge them. You're going to want to join whatever group.
Why do they have resentment and hate for the West? Yes, there's religion. Yes, there's indoctrination and messaging and fundamentalism. For all of the West and the United States talk of human rights and democracy and peace, we don't make a whole lot of peace. We don't make a lot of peace. We don't encourage a lot of peace. We selectively stand up for human rights. So why do these people hate us? I mean, look at how they've been forced to live. Look at what they've endured. Again, Kid Rock is clearly just basing his opinions and strategies and solutions on action movies from the 80s. And the other thing that he said, now we have a reason to go after Palestine if they want to go after Israel. This triangulation is really something. Yes, Hamas did something awful on October 7th, just heinous and disgusting. This didn't start on October 7th, though. It's been happening for 75 years. And while Israel is responding to Hamas's attack, which, mind you, is an overreaction, which is probably what Hamas intended. Hamas probably was looking for Israel to overreact because they know that overreaction and all the killing will lead to more support for them among the populace. I digress. While Israel responded to October 7th, now you're saying that because the Palestinians would want to counter and respond to Israel if armed, that gives us a reason to wipe out Palestine. How does the Palestinian people wanting to defend themselves warrant the wiping out of the Palestinian people?
Whenever you're bombing cities, like
what if that was your house? What if that was your house? Let's call your house Israel, and your neighbors are Palestine.
Okay.
Those motherfuckers, you got a family of 4. They come over and fucking take out 2 of them in the fucking worst way. Are you really gonna worry about what type of force you're using at your neighbors?
No, you definitely.
Well, the wife didn't have anything to do with it. We got to make sure she's okay and get some aid. This and there's no, I'm sorry, man. This is war. It's terrible. It's the worst thing on earth. I'm a peaceful man. So in one breath, you're comparing this to a domestic dispute between neighbors, but then saying it's war. A neighborly dispute or murder where people from one house kill their neighbors in the next house. That's not war. That's murder. It's not war. And I'm sorry, but if someone from next door came and killed my family, I wouldn't want to kill their family.
I'd want justice for against the person that did it, but one person killing people doesn't implicate their family unless they're involved. But it doesn't implicate innocent people just by relation.
Right, but you're not supposed to pick civilian targets. That's actually a
You
war
can't
crime.
fight war like that. When
But you're not supposed to pick
hiding in civilian targets.
They are. So that's where, like, the Mossad
They're in
have been able
hospitals.
to
They
get
got
into
trenches
hospitals.
underneath. They got operation centers.
They killed those dudes.
And all we can do is go by
the
the reporting. Like, I get it, but at some point you got to believe something, right?
No, I definitely do. They definitely seem to be doing that. But also, if you're a person who's born in Palestine, you're f***ed. You're under their control. It's not your fault. And
by birth. You're
yeah, but those aren't our enemy.
They're not our enemy. And yet, Kid Rock's just like, well, they were born into it, so too bad. Being born into oppression, under an occupation, that shouldn't mean a death sentence. It just shouldn't. And Kid Rock says he's a peaceful man and that war is just the worst thing. But yet he's looking to just wipe out a population because they don't look like him, because they don't speak his language, because they don't wave an American flag. We're approaching 30,000 Palestinians killed in this 5-month war. And from the last numbers that I saw, Israel lost 1,200 civilians, which is terrible, tragic, and it should never have happened. But the majority of the 30,000 that we're almost up to in Gaza, the majority of them are women and children. Like 2/3 are women and children. All of this war doesn't take us to anywhere good. It doesn't end on a positive note. Violence begets violence. Anyway, I'm thankful that Kid Rock is not an elected official and doesn't hold power. Anyway, let us know what you think in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And hit the notification bell, and we'll be back with more.